I wasn't supposed to be working alone that night. Graveyard shift at a nowhere town gas station was already creepy enough with 2 people, but my coworker Caleb decided to accidentally sleep through his shift again. The manager didn't pick up, didn't respond to my texts, didn't care. So from midnight to sunrise, it was just me, a flickering fluorescent ceiling, and the endless stretch of cracked highway outside. The store felt wrong from the moment I clocked in. Not haunted, not paranormal, just heavy. Like the air was thicker than normal, like every sound echoed twice, the kind of wrong you feel in your bones. The first couple hours were quiet. A tired trucker grabbing jerky, a woman buying a pack of gum who avoided eye contact like she'd just cried. Nothing unusual, but around 2:45 a.m. the world seemed to fall asleep all at once. The cars stopped driving by. The lights outside the store buzzed louder than usual. Even the soda cooler hum felt deeper, slower. At 2:50 I began the restock run. The freezer room in the back always gave me chills, not because it was cold, but because it felt like a place that wasn't meant to be entered alone. The hallway leading to it was narrow and old, with peeling gray paint on the walls and a humming fluorescent bulb that flickered just a little too often. When I first rounded the corner, I noticed the freezer door was slightly open, maybe 2 inches, just enough for cold air to spill out. That wasn't normal. The freezer door was industrial, heavy, loud, stubborn when you opened it. It didn't crack open on its own. It didn't drift open with a breeze. You had to pull it with effort. Still, I pushed it shut, heard the latch click, and went back to unpacking the new shipment. 10 minutes later, I rolled the cart down the hallway again. The door was standing wide open. A wave of cold air blasted out so sharp it stung my cheeks. The light inside flickered through the doorway, casting long rectangular shadows across the floor. I stood there for a few seconds, listening. Nothing. No movement, no sound. Just the deep hum of the cooling unit vibrating through the walls. I stepped inside, checking behind shelves even though there was nowhere for anyone to hide. The room was spotless. Drinks were stacked neatly. Bags of ice were lined perfectly. And yet, it felt like someone had just been there. The air felt disturbed. It felt occupied. I shut the door again, this time leaning against it to be sure it latched. Back in the main store, I kept glancing nervously toward the hallway. I hated feeling watched, and that's exactly how it felt, like something was waiting behind the corner. At 3:07 a.m., the sound hit. Clang! I swear my heart stopped. The entire store echoed with it, a metal-on-metal slam that sounded like the freezer door smashing into the wall. I walked cautiously toward the hallway, every step feeling heavier. The moment I saw the floor, I froze. Wet, bare. Footprints led from the freezer room into the hall. Big footprints. Not human big, but wrong big. The toes were too long. The arch was too high, like someone had walked through slush or melted ice, and they weren't fading. They glistened under the flickering light, fresh and wet and cold. I checked the freezer again. Empty. Silent. The air inside felt colder than before, almost painful to breathe. I backed away slowly. Then I ran to the counter and pulled up the hallway camera. At 3:06:52, the door was shut. At 3:07 foot, the feed glitched, static. The timestamp froze for 8 seconds. When the image returned, the door was open and the footprints were already on the floor. No figure, no movement, nothing. Just absence and footprints. I watched it over and over, hoping I'd spot a shadow or a blur. Nothing changed. The next hour crawled. The store felt colder. The lights buzzed louder. Every sound made me jump. I swore I heard something dragging faintly behind the walls. Not rats, bigger, slow. At 3:40 a.m., the hallway temperature had dropped so much frost was starting to form on the tiles. Then I heard breathing. Not human breathing. Wet. Heavy. Slow. Like someone sucking air through waterlogged lungs. It came from the hallway. Every hair on my body lifted. I grabbed the small metal flashlight we kept under the register and walked toward the sound, each step shrinking my courage. The breathing stopped as soon as I reached the hall corner. The freezer door stood fully open. Inside the room, my breath instantly fogged. It was far too cold, way beyond what the setting should allow. The back wall had a thin layer of frost growing up it like veins. And then, Something moved inside. Just a slight shift. A shadow along the far left wall near the stacks of ice bags, shifting like someone had stepped back out of view. I took one step backward. The freezer light flickered. Twice. Then stayed solid. Nothing moved again. I backed away, keeping my eyes on the doorway, and returned to the front counter. I wanted to call someone, anyone, but I didn't even know what I'd say. At 4:12 a.m., a delivery driver walked in. Tall guy in a neon vest, messy beard. He took one step inside and stopped mid-stride. "Why is it freezing in here?" he asked. Before I could explain, he walked toward the hallway. I told him not to go back there, but he laughed it off, thinking I was messing with him. The moment he turned into the hallway, he went still. "Whoa," he muttered. "Footprints." My stomach dropped. "They're old," I lied. He shook his head. "No, they're not. These are dripping." He took another step, moving toward the freezer. Then I heard it. A faint tapping sound. Not the freezer door, not the cooling system. Inside the freezer. The tapping turned to a slow, wet dragging. The driver glanced back at me. I opened my mouth to tell him to stop. He stepped inside. "For real?" he said. "What's—" He didn't finish. His sentence cut off like someone muted him. Silence. Total silence. "Hello?" I called. No answer. I stepped into the hallway and turned the corner. He wasn't there. Fresh, wet footprints led straight into the freezer. The door stood wide open. "Hey!" I yelled. No response. I only took 3 steps toward the doorway before the light inside snapped off. Just the freezer. Everything else stayed lit. The cold air pouring from the room grew sharper, heavy, pressurized like something large was standing just out of view. Then the footsteps started. Slow, wet, coming closer. I backed away, hands trembling, breath shaking out of me uncontrollably. The footsteps reached the threshold, but nothing came out, just the sound. Then, click. The freezer light flicked back on. The room was empty, totally empty. The delivery driver had vanished, and in the dead center of the floor, where no footprints had been before, were 2 massive, wet prints facing outward, as if someone had been standing right there staring directly at me. The police came. They found no signs of forced entry, no footprints, no signs the driver had even walked into the hallway. They asked if I had possibly misunderstood the situation. I almost laughed in their faces. But the worst part came as they were leaving. One officer walked down the hallway toward the freezer just to check the door mechanism. When he came back, he looked unsettled. "You said the latch sticks?" "Yeah," I said. He shook his head. "That door doesn't latch at all. Hasn't for a long time. The mechanism's broken." I stared at him. "No," I said. "I heard it click shut dozens of times." He shrugged. "Can't. It physically can't click. The latch is disconnected." I quit the same morning. No notice, no explanation. On my way out, I glanced down the hallway one last time. The freezer door, heavy, metal, broken latch, slowly, quietly swung shut behind me. And even from the front entrance, I heard it. A soft, deliberate click. I've worked the late shift at a lot of places, but nothing ever felt as isolating as that rural gas station off Route 19. The kind of place with one flickering sign, 2 pumps, a single grimy bathroom, and a parking lot that disappeared into total darkness after sunset. We closed at midnight. Most nights I was counting the drawer by 12:03, lights off by 12:10, and in my car by 12:15. But the night I met the woman in the red raincoat, everything went sideways. The weather was clear. The air was still. And yet she walked in soaked like she'd been standing in a storm no one else could see. It was 11:47 p.m. when the bell above the door jingled softly. At first, I didn't even look up from mopping. But when I did, she was already inside, motionless, staring down the hallway that led to the bathrooms. Her hood was pulled low, dripping water onto the floor. Her coat was torn in the back, a long vertical rip like it had snagged on something sharp. She didn't browse, didn't look around, didn't even breathe loudly. She just stood there. I cleared my throat. We closed in 13 minutes. No reaction. She didn't move, didn't blink, didn't acknowledge me in the slightest. I tried again, louder. "Ma'am, do you need help?" Still nothing. I walked a little closer, staying cautious. Something about her posture felt wrong. Not threatening, no, just wrong. Tensed, hollow, like she'd been carved out and placed there. When I finally got near enough, her voice slipped out, quiet and shaky. "Someone's supposed to meet me here." Her words made my skin crawl for a reason I couldn't explain. "Okay," I said slowly. "Who's meeting you?" She didn't answer. Her gaze stayed locked on the bathroom door. Her hands trembled slightly at her sides. Her soaked sleeves clung to her wrists. A part of me wanted to offer her a seat or some water. Another part of me, something instinctive, told me not to get any closer. The clock hit 11:58 p.m. I had to close up. "Ma'am," I said softly, "we're shutting down. If you need to call someone, I can..." "He said he'd come back." Her voice cracked in the middle. "He said he wouldn't leave me here again." Before I could respond, she finally moved. One slow step deeper into the store, still facing the bathrooms. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't trained for whatever this was. "Okay," I said carefully. "Why don't you tell me who..." She cut me off. "He told me to wait by the bathrooms. He told me he'd be right back. I've been waiting. I've..." Her voice trailed off into a whisper I couldn't hear. A cold feeling washed over me. Something wasn't right. Not with her, not with the situation, not with the air in that building. It was like the temperature had dropped 10 degrees. The clock struck midnight. I really needed to lock the doors, but I wasn't about to manhandle a distressed woman. Out into the dark. "Listen," I said, "we're closed. Can I call someone for you? Family? Police?" That finally made her turn. She didn't lift her head fully, just enough so I could see the bottom half of her face, gray, lifeless skin, and lips trembling like she was freezing. But her eyes, I couldn't see her eyes. The hood cast a shadow too deep, too dark. "You shouldn't lock the doors," she whispered. Her tone was different now, urgent, almost frightened. "You shouldn't lock me out. He won't like that." "Who?" I asked. Her chest rose and fell sharply, as if the question hurt. Then she said something that chilled me straight through. "He didn't want me to leave him. I promised I'd stay. I always stay." Her voice cracked again. "And now he keeps coming back. He keeps coming back to get me." The lights flickered, just once, but it was enough to send panic crawling up my spine. I took a slow step back. "Okay, listen, I'm not trying to upset you, but I need..." She walked past me. I don't know if walked is the right word. She drifted. Her feet moved, but everything else stayed rigid, stiff. She went past the counter, past the aisles, right out the front door. Didn't even open it fully, just pushed it with her fingertips and slipped out. I hesitated, then followed her to lock up behind her. But when I stepped outside, she wasn't on the sidewalk. She wasn't near the pumps. She wasn't anywhere under the lights. Instead, I heard footsteps, wet, dragging ones behind the building. Behind the store was all forest. No streetlights, no houses, just pitch-black woods. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. Just the soft sound of wet fabric hitting dirt, then silence. I locked the door fast and tried to shake it off, but I couldn't. Something was wrong. Something about that woman felt like she wasn't just lost. She wasn't just distressed. She felt untethered, like she was only half present. I finished closing as fast as I could and got in my car. The whole drive home, I kept checking the rearview mirror, convinced I'd see her sitting in the back seat, dripping water onto the upholstery. The next morning, a sheriff's deputy came into the station. He had that look cops get when they have been driving all night following a tip that led nowhere. He asked to speak to whoever worked the night shift. That was me. "You see a woman in a red coat last night?" he asked. My throat clenched. "Yeah," I said. "She came in right before close. Why?" He sighed heavily. "We've been searching for her." That hit me like a punch. "Searching? Why? What happened?" "She's been missing 9 days," he said quietly. "Husband reported her after she didn't come home from a hike." A chill shot through me. I felt my mouth go dry. "She said she was waiting for someone, that he'd be back for her." The deputy nodded grimly. "That fits." "What do you mean?" I asked. He rubbed his forehead. "Her husband, the one who reported her, died in a crash 6 days ago." My stomach dropped hard. She couldn't have been waiting for him. I whispered. The deputy didn't answer. He didn't need to. Something about the way she moved, the way she spoke, the soaked clothes even though the sky had been clear, the way she disappeared behind a building with no footprints leading out. Something wasn't natural. Right before the deputy left, he told me something else, something that's stuck with me every night since. We've gotten calls, he said, from people driving on Route 19 late at night. They keep reporting a woman in a red coat standing on the shoulder. He hesitated, always facing the road, always waiting. I swallowed. Waiting for who? He shook his head slowly. Whoever she thinks is coming back for her. I never saw her again, at least not in person. But some nights, on my drive home, I swear I see a faint shape in a red coat far down the highway shoulder. Not moving, not walking, just standing, still waiting. I worked the overnight shift at a small 24-hour gas station off Route 89, the kind of place that only gets truckers, drifters, and the occasional drunk college kid after midnight. I'd been there for almost a year, and nothing about the job surprised me anymore, until the night I realized some customers don't actually come inside to buy anything. They come to stay. It was early October, a little after 2:40 a.m., and we had just gotten hit with one of those unexpected cold snaps. The kind where the air feels thin, like something is draining the warmth out of it before it even reaches your skin. I was behind the counter restocking lighters when I heard the front door beep, signaling that someone had come inside. But when I looked up, nobody was there. No footsteps, no rustling in the aisles, no sound at all. Just the faint humming of the refrigerators in the back. I stepped around the counter to check, thinking maybe the sensor had glitched. But halfway down the first aisle, I noticed something weird, a trail of wet footprints leading from the entrance straight toward the bathroom hallway. They weren't heavy like work boots. These looked more like someone walking barefoot across cold tile. But that wasn't the part that bothered me. What bothered me was that the footprints didn't start outside the door. The first one was directly on the welcome mat, nothing before it. Like the person hadn't come from the outside at all. Like they had appeared there. I tried to ignore it, telling myself someone came in quickly during a moment I wasn't looking. I walked down the hallway toward the bathrooms, and that's when I noticed the men's room door was cracked open just an inch. The light inside wasn't on. I pushed it open, expecting to catch some drunk guy passed out on the toilet, but the bathroom was empty and freezing, like someone had propped the door open to an industrial freezer. My breath fogged in front of me. Goosebumps crawled up my arms. I checked the stalls, the trash can, even behind the door. Nothing. I turned off the light, walked out, and shut the door. But as soon as it clicked closed behind me, I heard it, a soft, muffled exhale right on the other side. I froze. Another breath, slow, deep. I backed away slowly, the floor creaking under me. My mind was trying to rationalize it. Bad pipes, air pressure, whatever. But my body knew better. Every instinct screamed, don't go back in there. I went to the counter and waited, keeping one eye on the hallway. Minutes passed, then half an hour, then another. Nothing happened. At around 4:15 a.m., a trucker came in to buy coffee. He noticed the wet footprints still faintly visible on the floor. Someone go swimming out there, he joked. I didn't laugh. Do these look barefoot to you? He leaned down, squinted, then frowned. Well, yeah, looks like someone walking around without shoes. We both followed the footprints down the hall. That's when we saw it. The bathroom door, the same one I'd shut earlier, was now open again. Wide open, light on. And inside, on the tile floor, were new wet footprints, fresh ones, as if someone had been standing there just seconds before we walked up. The trucker looked at me. You calling the cops? I nodded, even though I already knew what they'd say. The cops searched the store, the bathrooms, the back storage, even the dumpster. No one. No signs of forced entry, no wet clothes or towels, nothing. You probably just missed the guy, one of them said. People wander in half frozen all the time. Happens more in the winter. Sure, maybe, except winter wasn't even here yet. And no random half-frozen stranger breaks into a locked bathroom through solid tile walls. I tried to shake it off and finish my shift. Dawn finally came around 7 a.m., and I clocked out as soon as my relief arrived. I didn't tell her what I saw. I didn't want to sound crazy, but when I came in the next night, she was waiting for me by the time clock. "You didn't tell me the bathrooms were messed up." My stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" She lowered her voice. "The men's room light keeps turning on by itself, and someone smudged the mirror. Looked like fingerprints." Then she handed me something she'd found stuck under the soap dispenser. A room key. A cheap metal key with a fading plastic tag on it. It belonged to the motel across the road, the one that had been abandoned for almost 15 years, the one with all the windows boarded up and the parking lot full of weeds. Nobody had stayed there in over a decade. "Some kid probably snuck over there," I said, trying to sound calm. "Sure," she replied, clearly not believing it, "except the key's warm, like whoever had it was just holding it." I didn't know what to say. That night, around the same time as before, 2:40 a.m., the door chimed again. This time I watched it closely. The glass door slid open as if someone had pushed it, but there was no one there. The cold air rushed in, brushing past me like a person walking by. The footprints reappeared seconds later, forming on the tile one at a time. Invisible feet, invisible weight, walking toward the bathroom. I didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't blink. The light in the men's room clicked on by itself. Then, slam. The door shut, hard enough to shake the hallway. I grabbed my phone and dialed my manager, hand shaking so badly I almost dropped it. No answer. I called again. Voicemail. Then I heard the bathroom door slowly creak open. I couldn't run, couldn't look away, couldn't even swallow. Something stepped out, not visible, but I heard the slow, wet sound of footsteps, one after another, coming toward the front of the store. I backed behind the counter, heart pounding in my throat. The scent of old water and mold filled the air, like something that had been underground for years was now breathing right in front of me. The steps stopped just a few feet away. Then, something touched the counter. A faint wet handprint appeared on the plastic surface, as if someone had placed their palm down right in front of me. Then, a second handprint. Then, slowly. Both handprints slid away, down the counter, toward the exit. The door opened again, closed again. Silence. I didn't move for almost 10 minutes. When I finally stepped out, the handprints were still there, drying, fading. When my manager arrived in the morning, she looked at the prints and said the same thing everyone else did. It was probably just a wet customer, but no customer leaves without buying something. No customer leaves footprints that start from nowhere. No customer carries a warm room key from a motel that hasn't had a living guest since the early 2000s. I still work there, still take the overnight shift, still watch the bathroom hallway every night around 2:40 a.m. The footprints don't show up every shift, neither do the handprints. But when they do, the air gets cold. And sometimes, right before the bathroom light turns on by itself, I hear the soft exhale of someone standing behind that door, waiting to come out again.